Whatever we call it, sink or swim, make or break, all or nothing, the majority of auto manufacturers have at some point in their history found themselves in dire need of a brand new model to prevent catastrophe. Sometimes that's because they're simply out of money after years of declining sales and or overspending, other times it's because new owners have heavily invested in spying potential but are impatient to see results or else after years of mediocrity, and still other times it's because an iconic model has endured for too long and no one knows how to replace it. The Aston Martin DB7. It's true that Ford's purchase of a 75%, later 100% interest in Aston Martin in 1987, when the firm had sold only about 20,000 vehicles in the previous 20 years, was crucial to the company's survival. However, Ford needed to see a profit on its investment, therefore it required a car that would sell in large quantities. Unlike the DB7. Its origins actually date back to when Jaguar, which was acquired by Ford in 1989, was working on a project to replace the XJS, its first attempt at the F-Type using an Ian Callum design and engineering expertise from Tom Walkinshaw Racing. When Jaguar management cancelled the project, Walkinshaw took the leftover parts to Aston. The newly appointed CEO Walter Hayes liked it, and the rest is history. From his earlier Jaguar idea, Ian Callum updated the DB7 and installed a 3.2-liter supercharged straight-six engine. The DB7 was built at Bloxham in Oxfordshire, like the Z220, whose development TWR also oversaw, and it made its debut at Geneva in 1993. That same summer, it was also on display outside Goodwood House at the first Festival of Speed. Later additions to the lineup included a Volante convertible and a V12 model. More than any previous Aston, 7000 DB7s had been made by the time production ended in 2004. The narrative was completed when Jaguar created the 2006 XK using leftover DB7 parts. Austin Metro. British Leyland had already been saved by the British government after it had collapsed in the middle of the 1970s, and it then invested £275 million in turning the firm around with the new Metro and an update for the Longbridge manufacturing facility. The Austin Metro had to fulfill its promise, and it did so starting with its 1980 introduction despite widespread industrial action that threatened to derail it. The Mini Metro, as it was originally known, was designed by Harris Mann under David Batch and featured many Mini parts bin carryovers, not least its A-series engines, though they were upgraded to a plus guise in both 998cc and 1275cc capacities. It was later sold alongside the Mini to compete with new hatchbacks such as the Fiesta, Polo, and Renault 5. During a 10-year production run that saw more than 1 million Metros produced in total, Diana, Princess of Wales, nipped around town in one before switching allegiance to Mk3 Escorts, helping to boost the Metro's profile. Before a new Metro arrived using a lot of its predecessors' warmed-up leftovers, about 2,500 a week rolled out of Longbridge. There were also heated variations. The MG Metro debuted in 1982, barely 2 years after the MGB manufacture ceased, followed by the MG Turbo, which was built with some assistance from Lotus. The 6R4, a four-wheel drive Group B rally car with a mid-mounted V6 and Williams Formula One wizardry, was the most bizarre of them all. Continental GT by Bentley. In 1998, Volkswagen acquired Bentley from Vickers, after only 414 vehicles had been delivered for the year. Less than 40,000 vehicles had been produced by Bentley since Woe started the high-end British manufacturer in 1919. The Continental GT, a less expensive, non-coach-built model that was nevertheless still built at Crewe after a £1 billion renovation, followed in 2003. The W12 twin-turbo engine in the Conti produced 552 bhp, and it had permanent all-wheel drive in addition to its svelte new design by Raoul Pires and Dirk van Brakel. At £90,000 when new, it was still out of most people's price range, but it was also half as expensive as the Continental R, which at the time gave the market some much-needed breath of fresh air. Football players from lower divisions must have enjoyed the Continental as much as Premiership players did, since by 2005 Bentley sales had increased 2,083% to a remarkable 8,627 units, providing the firm more stability than, well, ever. The four-door Flying Spur and GTC convertible were among the variants produced through 2011. The GT's engineering was also used in the Volkswagen Phaeton and the Bugatti Veyron with its W16 quad-turbo engine. Additionally, the second-generation Continental GT that took its place when it was replaced was a significant advancement of the first. The true savior of Bentley. BMW 700. As a result of the BMW 700, a Mercedes-Benz takeover attempt during the volatile late 1950s might have occurred, and today's Bavarians might have a Stuttgart accent instead of their native one. Without a doubt, it ranks among the most important vehicles in BMW's past. The BMW 700 was introduced in 1959 as a coupe and saloon. It was built on BMW's first steel monocoque chassis, had Michelodi styling, and had a flat twin 697cc engine situated in the back of the vehicle, which is why it lacks the company's signature kidney grills and has a round number. Some of the hardware came from the unsuccessful BMW 600, which was essentially an enlarged bubble vehicle with a door that hinged at the front. 35,000 units of the BMW 600 were manufactured in 1960 alone. Due to its low dry weight of less than 600 kilograms, short overall length of 3,540 millimeters, and rear engine for acceleration, the 700 proved effective at hill climbing as well, despite having only 30 bhp. At 1, Hans Stuxnar won the German hill climbing championship at the age of 60 in 1960. A hotter 700 Sport also increased the WIC to a roaring 39 horsepower. Citroen BX. The Citroen BX, which was manufactured from 1982 to 1993, is widely regarded as the model that kept Citroen out of bankruptcy. It was the first product of the recently formed PSA Group, sometimes known as the Peugeot takeover. The design, by Bertoni, was nevertheless idiosyncratically and brilliantly Citroen with lines that resembled folded cardboard, some panels made of plastic, and bodywork encasing the rear wheels like a 1930s streamliner, even though the BX swapped mechanical innovation for a rummage in the Peugeot parts bin. And this at a time when Ford had recently introduced the jelly-like, uninspired Sierra. Inside, the wackiness persisted with a drum speedometer, a digital strip for a tachometer, and satellite control pods. The Mk2 featured analog instruments, which toned down the wackiness. Additionally, Citroen at least kept its hydraulic suspension even though the parent company Peugeot shared the gasoline and turbodiesel engines. Over the course of the 11-year production cycle, more than 2.5 million BXs, including hatchback and estate versions, were made. Given their rarity nowadays, you'd never realize that those that are still around have a vibrant fan community, like the Citroen Car Club. Lamborghini Gallardo. Before the Volkswagen Group held firm in 1998, the year it acquired Bentley, delivering much-needed financial stability, Lamborghini had been transferred between owners like a package at a child's birthday party. Although the Murcielago technically appeared sooner, the V12 supercar was very much a classic Lambo and sold in less quantity, albeit for a lot more money. The vehicle that actually paid back Volkswagen's investment and secured Lamborghini's future was the V10 Gallardo, which was released in 2003. The Gallardo was a more inexpensive model that blended the best of Lamborghini with traditional German objectivity, much like Volkswagen had polished a rough diamond. It was a significant improvement over the Murcielago. But gosh, that V10 engine was thrilling. It started out with 494 horsepower from 5.0 liters and eventually increased to 562 horsepower and 5.2 liters. It also changed from an even to an irregular firing sequence when the Gallardo underwent a redesign in 2008. Over a 10-year period, Santata produced slightly more than 14,000 Gallardos in a variety of variations, including 6-speed manual, paddle-shift automated manual, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, coupe, and spider. Lotus Elise. When the Japanese sold out to Romano Artaola, who was also the owner of Bugatti, which didn't work out, Lotus was back in the minor leagues after the steadiness of the Toyota years. Without a major OEM to support it, Lotus needed to update its stale lineup. The rather amazing response came from the brilliant Elise. Elisa Artaola, the grandson of Artaola, inspired the creation of this lightweight, no-frills rear-drive sports car, which had an extruded aluminium chassis, glass fiber bodywork and a 1.8-liter Rover K-series engine initially. 12,000 units of the Lotus Elise, which made its debut at the Frankfurt Motor Show in 1995, were sold up until 2001, when the nearly related Elise Mk2 took its place. Proton purchased Lotus from Artaola in 1996 because to the car's promise, no doubt. The closely related Exige more than an Elise with a roof, but that's the crux of it. The Evra, and even the more contemporary Emira were all built on the extruded aluminium framework of the Elise. Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL wasn't a mass-production model to fill the Merc coffers with cash and prevent catastrophe. Only 1,400 vehicles were sold between August 1954 and May 1957, but it was crucial to the long-term success of the German corporation. In reality, when Max Hoffmann, a U.S. importer, initially presented the idea to the Mercedes board, he argued that it was essential to Mercedes' existence in the U.S. According to the reasoning, such a vehicle would provide a touch of panache and help Merc balance its reputation as a producer of somewhat conservative saloons. Hoffmann was shown to be right. With its space-frame design, swing-axle suspension, and 3.0-liter straight-six engine, the W198 SL was developed from its race-bred sibling, the W194. In fact, the SL made its public debut at the New York International Motor Sports Show in February 1954, only 5 months after Hoffmann persuaded the Mercedes board to approve the project in September 1953. The gullwing doors, which were required because the space-framed structural bracing of the sills was incompatible with conventional doors, wowed spectators. The SL incorporated direct fuel injection to the six-cylinder engine and employed a combination of steel body and hinged aluminium panels, making it more sophisticated than the race car in terms of engineering and design. Depending on the final drive ratio selected, the SL's 212 horsepower and top speed of up to 156 miles per hour made it the fastest production car of its time. Its impact on how Mercedes is perceived should not be understated. Peugeot 205. Peugeot desperately needed a very lucrative volume vehicle, and the 205 proved to be the answer. Peugeot had overextended itself by the late 1970s after acquiring Citroën and later Chrysler Europe. The front-wheel drive 205, a pet project of Peugeot board member Jean Boylet, was developed by a team under Gerard Welter, head of Peugeot's own studio, to beat out competition from longtime partners Pininfarina. Paul Brack, formerly of BMW and Mercedes and later of the Peugeot factory, was responsible for designing the inside. There was a 205 for everyone. 3 doors, 5 doors, 2-door convertibles. The latter was created by Pininfarina, petrol and diesel, manual and automatic. It was roomy, enjoyable to drive, attractive, and economical. The T16 Group B Rally, a mid-engined monster that won the World Rally Championship in 1985 and 1986 and was also available for the road, was the best driving hot hatch of the 1980s. It is best known as the GTI in 1.6 and 1.9-liter guises, but it was also available as the insurance-friendly XS, Bare Bones Raleigh, and the T16 Group B Rally. A staggering 5,278,050 instances were created over a 15-year period. Without a doubt, the 205 helped Peugeot turn things around. Porsche Boxster. By 1989, sales had fallen from about 40,000 units annually to 15,000, and by the middle of the 1990s, Porsche only offered the 911 from the 993 generation. It needed to increase output and profitability while reducing costs. The 996-era 911 was the catalyst for the biggest transition in the 911's history to date, and the Boxster, a mid-engine car designed in tandem with it, was the solution. The majority of the interior and exterior components front of the B-pillar, as well as 50% of the parts, were shared by the two automobiles. Even the engines essentially resemble one another. Instead, Porsche chose to twin the M96 Flat 6 with the 911, twisting it through 180 degrees, lowering capacity and performance. Porsche had first contacted Audi to design a 4-cylinder engine. The scheme was successful, and when the first-generation 986 Boxster debuted on sale in 1996 for £33,950, it swiftly amassed 20,000 yearly sales, eventually moving 164,874 cars through 2004. Volkswagen Golf Mk1. Before the Mk1 Golf, Volkswagen had been experimenting with Beetle replacements for 2 solid decades, yet the majority of these failed to overcome the Beetle's rear-mounted, air-cooled engine and rear-wheel drive, and none were ever put into production. VW foolishly pushed a replacement into the distance. As competitors introduced more contemporary front-wheel drive, front-engine family vehicles in the late 1960s, VW sales began to stagnate. Imports into the US also experienced difficulties, and by 1974 the entire business was losing money. When it debuted that same year, the Mk1 Golf completely altered the game. A flexible hatchback was placed at the back because to the Giugiaro design's use of water-cooled 4-cylinder engines that were put forward of the driver to power the front wheels. McPherson struts were employed for the front suspension and a torsion beam for the rear, with a lot of the know-how coming from Auto Union, which VW acquired in 1964 and used for the first time in a production VW with the Passat. Volkswagen declared in 2007 that it has sold 25 million Golfs, surpassing the 21,517,415 Beetles that were sold. Today, that number is over 35 million, with a dynasty spanning 8 generations and nearly 50 years, thank goodness, with far more advancement than the Beetle ever experienced. Volvo 760 GLE. Even Volvo acknowledges that the 1982-760 GLE really saved Volvo and paved the way to the modern company of today. In spite of the oil crisis, issues with the 240's construction quality, and exorbitant construction costs at Volvo's Torslanda factory, initial work on the project started in 1975. The targets for the new car were established and given the following rankings: dependability, good fuel economy, longevity, low noise levels, design, and lastly performance, which provides a decent summary of the 760. The boxy shapes of the 760, created by Jan Wilsgaard as an estate in a saloon, were both inexpensive to produce and provided ample internal space. Rear-wheel drive and other features from the 200 series were carried over underneath, but the 760 was 100 kilograms lighter and overall shorter while having a 10 centimeters greater wheelbase. A 4-cylinder turbo, 2.8-liter V6, or a 6-cylinder turbodiesel made by VW were all available. 2 years after launch, the 740, which was more cheap and somewhat comparable, came next. Through 1992, 221,309 copies of the 760 were produced in the US, its largest market. The number increased to 1,230,704 with the related 740, although the 760 DNA persisted until the V90 ceased production in 1998. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe for more information. Please do support us.